All right. So welcome everyone to our inaugural Friday frameworks put on by IPN, co-founders Amanda Gilchrist and myself, Matt Lay. Basically what these are an opportunity for us to share some of the tools, tricks, and things that we've learned through not only our own career paths, but working with leaders and organizations to just sort of find ways of framing what's going on, because it's a lot easier when you have a structure or a framework to sort of make some sense of what you're doing. And then once you have a definition, it's much easier to understand what success looks like as you move forward. So our goal with each of these is to share some framework to help you get a better sense of how things function within your organization and within yourself, so that you can spend more of your time and your energy getting to the things that actually bring you fulfillment, which is why we're starting with what is a foundational framework for us called fulfillment ROI. And we really do believe this is a missing metric for leaders that they should be tracking, not only for themselves, but for their teams. So thanks for being here, and kind of excited to get started. So as to what we're going to be going over, our agenda is we're going to do a quick self-assessment, kind of check in, share with each other. And if people want to, you could put in the chat where you're calling in from, maybe what you're excited about. And then we're going to be looking into what is this concept that we call fulfillment ROI. Once we have an idea of the concept, what are some of the ways that we can shift it and help benefit and maximize our own personal ROIs with fulfillment, and some open discussion, and then we'll talk about next steps, where we can go from here. So starting with quick self-assessment, we've got 3 questions up here. I'd love for us to take 2 or 3 minutes just to think to yourself. If you're a writer, write it down. If you want to put it into the chat and share, that would be great. And then we'll have some open discussion kind of just to walk through these. But where are areas you usually get energized or drained in your work? Where do you create clear and meaningful value? And what is the biggest energy drain for you right now? So you don't have to answer all 3. You can if you want, but something for us to kind of just get ourselves centered on the topic for today. So I'll take 2 to 3 minutes to do that. All right, thanks, Jen from Chicago. Curious which suburb you're calling in from. I'll put in I'm in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Right now I'm in Barrington.
Barrington. Nice. San Antonio is still one of my favorite cities. Haven't gotten to Graniteville yet, but on the list.
I'll say you're not missing much, it's like a couple miles wide, just, part of the county. It's close to the interstate, so that's how you get to it.
Stay close to the interstate. Yeah. Well, Kenosha's up and coming. If anyone wants to come, like we got coffee shops popping up, which is like one of my favorite things. So, hi, Sherry. Welcome. We're just kicking things off. You might recognize some faces here in the audience.
Thank you.
And we're just we're going to be talking about fulfillment ROI today. And so we're just kicking off just to get ourselves in mindset. We're putting in the chat, like, where are we calling in from, and then answering these questions. So we just stepped into that. It's good to see you.
Hi, Sherry.
Hey, Carlos. And you said answer the questions that are on the self-assessment in the chat?
You can put them in the chat or just write them down, or if you like to
Oh,
think
okay.
writing all day and you just want to not have to write anymore, we just chat about it a bit. Yeah, I'm gonna. Where's the? There, +1. Do that. Yeah, Amanda, what you shared, that context switching, like that is real. And I think that's actually one of the hidden energy drains that people don't realize, especially when you are transitioning between like that tasking work, that vision work, that management work, like that leadership management contribution levels. It's, if you are constantly switching, it's oof.
Yeah, and it's that thought of like operating in different capacities. So you're like picking up different hats and just putting that's how I envision myself, like picking up different hats and putting them on.
Yeah. This being a frameworks thing, I used to have one where I said like everyone that starts a new job, you basically are moving into a place called I'll just call it Corporateville, and then you have your leadership lodge, your management manor, and your contribution condo. And each one of those is an address that you live at. What you have to figure out is where is your mail being sent, which is where do you need to live the most, and then what's the commute time between your three different locations. And it may feel like 2 seconds, but energy wise, how hard is it to move from that leadership lodge to that contributor condo? It's a helpful framework just to think through how much of like, holy cow, yeah, I'm constantly on the road basically in between these different pieces.
The analogies have started.
Sorry, like I was just like, is that one written down somewhere?
They're awesome. Yeah.
That actually fell into the category of kill your darlings. It was in the book, manage your gaps, and I just felt like it wasn't providing enough value, and it was shifting the conversation. So even though I love that analogy, I didn't actually bring it in to the book. So it's written somewhere in the discarded Word documents of extra stuff that I wrote in the book.
Well, good thing that this is recorded, so now we can go back and finish you out.
Yeah, Jen, no task takes 15 minutes. Actually, it takes 15 minutes when you're wearing so many hats. That's true. I found for myself, and I mean, yeah, I'm like this many days old when I'm starting to actually implement it. I have to do my tasking work before I do my talking work, because talking work with people becomes creative work, and I get excited about ideas. Like this right now if I would have had this in the morning, I would have spent the rest of the day thinking about the ideas, and I never would get to my task. So I have to protect my morning if I'm going to get anything meaningful done. And I've been terrible at it because I'm an early riser. So I just connect with people right away because that's where it's where my fun is. And then I get to the afternoon and realize, oh, I don't get anything done.
That's funny.
Yeah. How about you, Sherry? What's sticking out to you in these questions?
I was trying to figure out how to word this nicely. I mean, my energy drain is just people that don't listen.
I thought you were going to say my energy drain is Foster.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. It's just, sometimes you just say things and you try to say it in many different ways and it still just doesn't sink in.
Yeah, that lost in translation, and that like if you can't hold people, like accountability isn't shared. Like if it's not clear that the message has come through, it's really hard to feel like, am I micromanaging them if I'm checking in every time, or is this really what the person needs, or like what is it that has to be said to.
Yeah, because I come back saying, where did I miss?
Mm,
And so, you look at the first one, I come in energized, but I'm drained by the end of the day.
yeah, your cup is empty. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, I want us to kind of hold on to this, like these tasks. We're thinking about those that fill our cup, those that drain our cup, as we step into an overview of the framework, because this is what we're talking about. When we get into fulfillment ROI, it's understanding what's going on behind the scenes with all of this. And one of the things that really is at the foundation of the work we do at IPN, and something that I've been holding to for quite a few years now, is that fulfillment, while it's a unique journey for each of us as we're stepping into it, is actually a very simple formula on the back end. It is literally the exchange of the value that is created to the energy we've invested. And if we want to feel fulfilled, we need to create more value than we invest energy. And then how that looks is, if you look on the left, I have to invest a lot of energy to get something done, and it just doesn't create value. So Cherry, to your point, if you feel like you have to keep spending extra energy wondering, did the message get through? It doesn't feel like that message is very valuable, that the message wasn't valued. And then all of a sudden you're in a space where that's not very fulfilling, and that's going to drain your cup. What we're looking to do is, over time, figure out what are the dynamics going on in that situation. So how can I shift that energy investment? Is there a different type of conversation I could have? Or, like I mentioned for myself, for the work that I do, tasking work is a much heavier energy investment. It's all that even more difficult to do if I do it after all the creative work, because it's harder for me to shift back into it. It's very easy for me to leave the tasking environment. I love to leave it. So it's not an energy lift to switch out of it. It's an energy lift to shift into it. So if I can move my tasking work to the morning, its energy profile is lower. Because even though I know that my tasking work is providing value for myself and for my team and for my clients, the energy profile is really high if I try and do it later in the day. So just by shifting it to the morning, what I've done is I've reduced the energy profile. Now that becomes a much more fulfilling experience, even though it's not the most enjoyable part of my day. It's something I still just have to do. So curious thoughts, it's a simple framework. So like, through the things that you were looking at, anything that jumps out, like, you know what's making this not fulfilling, or fulfilling is the amount of energy or the amount of value in the relationship. So curious, what are your thoughts?
I definitely say for me, not that everyone wants to hear from me, right? It's the energy, right, that doesn't match up. Like, I know the value, like, hands down, 10,000% believe in the value, never a question about it, but the energy is like the thing that like makes you kind of go down on that slump a little bit, and like, oh, like have a split second of like, am I creating value, or am I like hindering the process? But yeah, that's me.
I would agree with that as well.
So part of that, missing that clarity, like when there's not clarity, it feels heavier on both the energy investment and the value creation. So yeah, I think you've named one of those pieces. Like, clarity is a pretty solid lens. If you don't feel like there's clarity, you're probably moving into an area where your fulfillment ROI is not serving you.
I also think there's some effort that goes into this, because there's a little bit of self-reflection, right? You're trying to get to that, as close to that balance as you can, or energy lower and value higher, obviously, but you really, like Matt, to what you've been saying, like this is where my energy is strong, this is where my energy is not, but that takes a little bit of work. Like, you can't just sort of like keep churning and doing the same stuff and expect this shift to happen. It's like you have to put a little effort into it, I think.
Excellent point. Like, there might be a little bit of an energy drain, like, or investment up front to figure out what is the right energy profile for you to get a better fulfillment ROI. And I think one of the other pieces is the interesting thing about blind spots is, I can guarantee you we will never see them by ourselves. That is by definition how they function. Finding a conversation partner as you're going through this, just to say, hey, here's what I'm seeing, I'm feeling. What do you see from your perspective? As I promise you, someone else is going to see something that you may not. as to how this thing is put together. And that's just the nature of blind spots. Anyone been in a space where you feel like the energy isn't taking a lot, but you just can't figure out what the value is of what you're doing?
I can think of a recent space, a work environment where there was a whole lot of churning and doing and spinning wheels, and then like there was we get to the end, like the finish line, we've produced the product, and then the night before it's like, no, let's like change everything. And even still, with the original product, with the new output, there wasn't like the clarity in the like what value do people actually get? Like, yes, maybe they feel good, but what I was noticing is that people didn't know how to move from feeling good about the content, the experience, to practicing that and making it a reality in their environment. I think that was like the hugest missing piece, and for that reason I felt like the value just wasn't completely there, right? Until like we can make anybody feel good for a day, for an afternoon, like, ooh, I'm energized, and then they go back and they're like, okay, now what do I do with that?
Mm, yeah. So like there's something about how do you shift that positive, that feeling, that experience into a consistent behavior, because that behavior is what's going to change and shift.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the value was. And it was just like missing, it was missing that mark.
Mm.
Yeah, I can relate to, I mean, actually a meeting we had this morning. I went into that meeting energized, thinking we had all of our ducks in a row. We dotted all the i's, crossed the t's, and made sure everyone was on the same page and we were all aligned. And, it was what I thought was going to be a good meeting. And then one person just decided to go rogue, and I walked out of there completely deflated.
Mm. So was it rogue as in it created, it like muddied the waters, or it shifted like
Yeah.
the value?
Very much muddied the waters, very much so. And, and then started putting questions in people's minds as to the validity of the work that we had done. And it's one of these other projects that I'm working on with the other Matt. And, and he and I, everything was just going good.
Yeah.
And then we have one other member of the team that said he was on board, and then all of a sudden just, well, I don't believe in this and I don't believe in that. And I'm like, where was the value of all of the conversations that we had leading up to that? If that's what came out to in our presentation to our CEO.
Yeah. And that all of a sudden it's like the energy, that's it. What I'm hearing in that, like the energy was fine and the value creation was high. And so you're feeling great. And then that conversation, it didn't change the energy investment at all because it's already done, but it completely deflated the value
Yep.
was being created. And now all of a sudden, because that went lower than the energy investment, it shifts the entire experience of that from a fulfilling to an unfulfilling. And it just, as an example of showing up and muddying the waters, how much of a difference that can make to the value that we're creating. Because clarity, like we've named it before, is so important here, especially when we're in leadership roles for our people. If they don't feel like they have clarity, because it's really hard to feel successful in something that you don't have a metric for success. And it's really hard to have a metric for success if you don't have clarity and definition of the thing that you're doing. And so muddy the waters for clarity, it's very difficult to have a feeling of success, which is where the value really comes through. And Amanda, do you want to, yeah. Yep, I was just asking Amanda if you want to be managing the chat when I see things coming through. But yeah, I love that. Brene Brown, big fan. Kim Scott says the same thing in, what is her book? How to be a badass boss, radical candor. How to be a kick-ass boss without losing your humanity. And that's one of the things she said. I think she got it from Brene Brown.
And to sort of kind of piggyback on what Amanda was saying, one of the teams that I led a while back that I was very proud of the team that we built. One of the things that we were very careful was how much value is there in the repetition and the redoing and the iterations of the same thing. So we used to have, and I got this from another conference that I went to, but we used to call it GETMO, GETMO. It was good enough to move on. Like at a certain point, you have to be good enough to move on. This is how much more energy I have. So is this GETMO? Because let's move to the next thing. Otherwise, we're going to keep on, depleting that energy, and the value is going to go down at the same time. And it's like, well, now everybody loses. So it's very, very careful to make sure that we were not over analyzing.
Wait, there's such a thing?
No, I mean, there's no such thing, Matt. Yeah.
My energy just went way up. No, that's yeah. Carlos, what's your statement for me in how to do that? Your version of Gitmo? He's run away from us. Carlos, yeah, Carlos and I have worked together, and I think most of you have heard it, but
I think it's push the button.
Yeah, that's push the button.
Yeah, I was about to yell it out like the price is right.
It doesn't even matter which button, because like I'm looking at this board, like I could make so many buttons. There's so many buttons up here. And it's like, look, just push one of them. I don't even care which one it is, because you will find something on the other side of the clarity you're looking for is probably on the other side of the action you have not yet taken. Like you just have to do something and start building momentum, because nothing is harder than going from step 0 to step 1, because step 2 has something to build on. Step 3 has something else to build on. It's that first piece to just get moving and into that. And that's have your energy left to get started, but you don't get any value out of it until you get started. And so like that's the part where I think that's portion of like how we look at this. So one of the things that just with this framework is just like a simple overlay as we're stepping into situations with our people, with ourselves. We're like, that meeting didn't go really well. I felt really unfulfilled. What went on? And it's just a quick set of questions. Did it feel like it took more energy than I was ready to give, or did it feel like I didn't create as much value as I wanted? And then I have someone coming into my office. It's like, I feel really like I'm burnt out. I'm drained. Is it because it's taking more energy to get things done? Or is it because we're not creating clarity for them of the value that they're producing in the work that they're doing? So it's just part of this framework is helping us to have those conversations when people show up in these spaces and when we're feeling it ourselves. So what do you do once you're into that? So there's two sides of it. There's really two levers. We call this catalyzing, is the one we talk about for reducing energy. If you remember back, it's hopefully not PTSD for anyone, to those chemistry days in high school or college, but a catalyst is something that when you add it, it speeds up the process of other elements coming together. So what a catalyst does is it reduces the time and the energy profile for things to get done. It makes things easier. So when you're looking to reduce your energy profile, you're like, wow, things are just taking more energy than they should. How do we do this differently? We have systems, we have processes, we have definitions. We start to just figure out who's supposed to be doing what, when, and where, so we're not stepping on toes. We have process, so we know what the steps are to actually get things done. And we have systems that keep us consistent. So if something is like, I always forget to do this activity that I'm supposed to do once a week, put it on your calendar. Do it on Thursdays at 9 o'clock, because you know that's when it's important. And we're going to get into an activity later where we're going to look at activities that we don't really want to lead. We don't want to be in charge of. How do we handle them? Well, if we can't hand them off to someone else and they still have to get done, you just have to be really diligent about it, very intentional, and then say, you know what, I don't want to do this tasking activity that's very difficult for me in my work, like posting on LinkedIn. So I need to be real intentional about when I do that in my day, because I know it has to get done. But if I put it off and just let it happen whenever, it's never going to happen, because it's something I don't want to eat on my plate. I have to be intentional about when I do it. That type of system, that's helping to catalyze. Then things like process documentation, control documentation, help us reduce the energy profile of getting things done in that corporate space. On the other side, we call that vectoring. Now, vectoring, again, back to now just mathematics, but in science, is vector is anything that has momentum and direction. So it's a combination of clarity on where you're going. So it's proper orientation and actual movement to get there. And so what helps improve value is knowing that what you're doing is moving towards a goal that you want to achieve and actually making progress towards that goal. So when you want to improve the value proposition, vectoring is really big, and this ties into another framework we can get into at some point. On our stance on progress is different from activity, in that progress is a 3-step process, which is you need to orient, be clear on where you're going, get to that why. Then you have to activate, which is define some sort of thing to do to make this thing happen. And then you have to figure out how to sustain that momentum, which is that consistency and clarity that we've been talking about. So if you want to help people improve the value proposition, you really have to help them get clear on what the why is. And then once you've helped them get clear on the why, help them define what's the next best step to move them towards that. That's what vectoring involves. It's just those two things. And that's going to help raise the energy or the value profile of the thing that you're doing. And what's interesting about this is sometimes, like even on the catalyzing, we can realize the energy profile we're bringing in is because we're carrying things that we don't have to or really can't change. Like we're frustrated about details in it. Like, I really wish this wasn't part of my job. Well, is it part of your job? Yes. Okay, it's going to have to get done. Accepting that and saying, I accept that this is part of my job. It's not my favorite, but I'm still going to have to do it, lets you let go of some of the energy of just being frustrated. That alone can reduce the energy profile that it carries for you. And that alone might be enough to shift it from being an unfulfilling to a fulfilling, or at least neutral, so it's not draining. So catalyzing and vectoring are kind of the two terms we use for how to reduce the energy drain and increase the value proposition of things that we're doing, which help us move into a higher maximized fulfillment ROI. So we're going to do an activity for a bit, and I'm going to figure out how to get back to share a document. What this is going to involve is a concept we came up called "What's your deal?" And what's your deal stands for is you can either delegate, eliminate, automate, or lead. And I just put it in the chat as a downloadable PDF. What we're going to go through here is, if you want to write on a piece of paper, if you can't edit this PDF, just think for a few minutes about what are some of the activities that you engage in. Where would you like to put them, kind of based on the energy profile and the value they create for you? It's this concept of fulfillment ROI that we've talked about. So as an example, I have to do marketing. Like we're a small business. We need to be out in front of people. No one can hire us if they don't know we exist. So we've tried a few different ways to market that I've personally put some energy and time into. One is speaking gigs. So not speaking gigs where I'm going out and I'm facilitating and I'm getting paid to come out and speak, but speaking at events where I'm there to build our profile. What I found is speaking events on a scale of 1 to 5 take 5 energy for me. It's a lot for me to be, I enjoy being up on stage in front of people and talking about stuff, but realizing that the actual marketing aspect of it is once I get off that stage. And then I need to go talk to people. And while I love talking to people, it feels like a forced conversation, just the way I show up in that space. So the value it produces for me, so why there's 2 values, the 3 and the 5. The first is the intrinsic, that's the value I feel it produces for me personally. And the second is the extrinsic, the value I believe it produces for other people. So for me, it just, it's hard for me, like, did that conversation, was that just us each trying to sell each other something and exchanging business cards at the end? I just don't see a lot of value in the conversations I have at networking events or speaking engagements, because they feel like networking events. And maybe the talk that I gave was providing value for people, but I just don't know. Like, are they coming here just to wait to talk to someone else afterwards? It's hard for me to feel that out. So that's speaking. So we tried another one, just pure networking events. I'm a part of a few networking groups. Just like speaking, that same energy profile shows up because it's a lot of starting conversations. I'm a non-disruptive person in general, so I don't jump into conversations that have already started to introduce myself. And so to do that feels really heavy. And now I don't even have a topic that I'm talking about to be a conversation starter. So I feel even less like it's producing value for me and for other people, but the energy is still really high. And we tried podcasts. Not surprising, because you've been hearing me up here talking this whole time. I really enjoy podcasts. Like, it's just, I get to show up and talk about stuff that's interesting and people ask me questions and I get to talk some more. So energy profile wise, I could just show up and do a podcast in 15 minutes. If you told me after this call I had a podcast to do, I would be excited, not like drained. So the value it produces for me is 10. Like, I love being on podcast. And like, maybe I'm projecting, but I'm really hoping that the people who actually listen to the podcast get value out of it. And so I'm thinking it's a pretty high number as well. So that's podcasting. LinkedIn. I do not like social media, but you got to show up somewhere. So for me, energy profile is like a 4. It's not terrible because I kind of like coming up with the ideas. What I found is the drain is the consistency piece, the doing it every day, because that's where you find the value. So I think that the process of thinking through things is valuable. I've had some interesting conversations with people on LinkedIn. So I'm like, it's kind of like a 5. The value for other people, I don't know. It sometimes feels like what I'm doing is rowing a boat to the middle of the ocean, dropping a pebble in, and then rowing back to the shore. And then the next day I row the boat to the middle of the ocean, drop a pebble in the middle of the ocean, and I row back to the shore. Are the pebbles and the ripples making a difference? I've had some cool conversations, but I can't quite say yes. So it's kind of in the middle for me. And then the last, oh, look, we're on a webinar. So it's another one that we do. Webinars are kind of like podcasts for me. It's a lot of talking about topics that are interesting, but there's a lot of behind the scenes things to make it happen. There's a lot of like scheduling calendars, like reaching out to people, doing all of that aren't really my favorite. And so as a mix, it's sort of a 3. But the value, like once we're on here having the conversation, I find really high. So as a mix, it's really close to a 7 because of that back end work to get here. And again, I'm hoping because it's a useful concept, it's a pretty high energy profile for other people. So that's me. And then how does that show up for which ones I would do from the deal? Speaking and networking, I've actually eliminated those because there's no return for me energy wise. And if I do those too long over time, I will burn out. And it's not producing a proper fulfillment ROI. So I'm gonna let those go. Podcast, pretty obvious. Like if I'm doing a 10 is my value and a 1 is my energy, I'm gonna lead those. I'm gonna jump on as many podcasts as I can. So that was a real clear eye-opening moment for me that podcasts are a great place for marketing. LinkedIn, like I said, you have to be present somewhere. So I can't just eliminate it. But what I've done is I've delegated as much of the things that I'm not great at, which is the consistency piece, as I can. So I work with an organization that helps me post on a regular basis, and I get to do that creation on the back end to help feed the parts that I like without draining me in the parts that I don't. And then webinars tend to lead as we step into them because I enjoy the front part. But I'd say it's more of an L+D. I definitely do partner with the team heavily to make these things happen. Which is awesome. So that was a long explanation of one example of how I step into, like, you could do each of your activities, or you could break it out into, well, okay, I have to do this activity, but there's like 6 steps. So I'm just curious to take a couple minutes for people to write some of their own ideas down, and then we'll kind of come together and have some conversation, maybe any aha moments, answer some questions.
So in short, you don't like marketing.
Oh my gosh, did that come through? Yeah, but it's important. So like, it's one of those things, like, you have to do it. Like, it has to be a part of it. But it's just like figuring out what works for me to be involved in that space.
Mhm. First, I'm going to be the difficult one, Matt. I'm like, can I put 4.5? Like a right between 4 and 5.
Yeah, this is yours. It's there to provide you value. So you put in the energy you want to make it fulfilling. And it's like, what's that old, like, all frameworks are,
All models are wrong. Some
all models
useful.
are wrong and some are useful.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like, does this provide you value? If not, then it's a good one to say, okay, yeah, I'll go do something different. But that's the point of these Framework Fridays in general. It's like, we're going to put a bunch of models, a bunch of frameworks forward, take what works. These aren't prescriptive. You don't have to do them to be successful, only if they provide you value. But you can't do 4.6.
Dang it. I was going to try that on my next one.
Oh, Sherry, check out this cup I'm drinking out of. Totally forgot this is the one I was using.
I like that. There you go.
Little product placement.
I was just going to say.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Bob, yeah, tastes good.
You just need a steak to go with it.
Ugh. What's that? What's the one in the Pearl that where you get like, what is it, like a 96 ounce? Like that's the only Lababia steak they have there. It's like the really big one.
Isidore?
Isidore? Yeah. We went there for our
Yeah.
anniversary. We got
Yeah,
that
the
one.
big tomahawk.
That was delicious, but that was an intense it was like,
A
all right,
lot.
let's do this. Yeah.
That's funny.
Curious if people want to start sharing or if anything's coming up. Any aha moments?
I'll share one that's really been top of mind pretty much every day for the last 8 months. And that's our, managing the risk management and managing the inventories within the system and then doing the presentations. And I mean, for me, that's definitely a 5 on the energy side of it. I feel like I get a lot of value out of it. I don't know how much others get out of it. So I had an 8 there, and then I said 6 to 7. And I think too, that kind of goes back to figuring out what's the best way to present it. But one of the big burdens I think on this is, I mean, it's got to be automated. There's too much manual work going into it to really sustain it.
And one of those like triggers for that automation space, like it's like the 2 highlighted work is it's a pretty standard process and it's consistent.
It is, and we're actually working on the automation, just trying to figure out how we can get it, because it's so much data, and it is. I mean, it's very high energy, it's very intense, and how do we have that data flow into our ERP systems, or without the manual input, because it does leave so much room for error.
Anytime, like, humans are amazing, but the consistency is not one of the amazing things about humans. Yeah, I think what is that one of those other quotes that like computers, technology is fast, accurate, and stupid. Humans are slow, inaccurate, and brilliant. It's the marriage of the two that creates the real value.
Yeah, to figure it out.
Just letting the 2 pieces play in the environments where they bring the value. So it sounds like you've already kind of got a strategy in place to address that. Like you put that in the automate category.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what do you think it's once you automate that, what's that going to do? How's that going to shift the profile, energy and value?
I think it's going to increase the value for the others that are using it, because they'll gain confidence in the numbers, or confidence in the data, knowing that it is automated. And I think for me, I mean, I still, the value is going to go up, because it's going to take a bit of workload off my shoulders as well.
Yeah, that sounds like an energy reduction. So to move from like a 5 to like
Yes.
3 or a
Yeah.
2, which that's a twofer. Yeah, if you can increase the value proposition and reduce the energy profile, that's a solid option.
Yeah.
I feel like one of my tasks has like a flip energy that can flip on a coin. So one of the things I do for a lot of clients is I do some writing, which I really do love. And my energy for writing would be a 1 if I'm doing it early in the day.
Mm,
And if I'm doing it, and the value would be, you know, I like to think it would be a 10, let's just say. But but if I'm doing it later in the day where I can feel my brain start to struggle, I mean, then my energy goes to a 5. So I have learned to just shut the computer, put the notebook, however I'm doing that, and wait until I feel that energy sort of renew itself so I can go back and start fresh.
mm. So question with that, why would you ever do it in the afternoon? Like, is it because there's a deadline or what's,
Sometimes,
okay.
yep, sometimes, or that's part of one of the things that I could work on better for myself is my own time management
Mm,
of remember leaning into when things are going to actually be easy and high value instead of fighting that, which I could use the analogy for, working out, because that's one of the other things I do is teach fitness, and people always ask, well, I know I should work out in the morning. And I'm like, well, if you're not a morning person, you should not work out in the morning. You should absolutely, you should work out at midnight if that's what works for you. So
yeah.
don't fight that. And so I have to take some of my own medicine, I think, with that.
Yeah, and I think that could be a good space once you have that awareness, sharing that awareness with the clients. Be like, hey, I just want you to know, I do my best writing in the morning. So when you assign me something, can you let me know if it could be due by the next, like by 10 a.m. the next day? That would help you align to like them being aware of what they're asking you. Or if they're like, hey, Jen, I know that this is not your favorite writing time, but we need something by like 6 p.m. today because it has to be out the door. Then you're like, okay, then and you can kind of let go of like, I have to write in my worst time. It's like, at least there's a higher value because I'm helping someone out in a situation that they really need me. Maybe.
Yeah, that's great input. I love that. More communication is always going to be helpful. So yeah, that's a good point. If I communicate that to people, that's all the better for everybody. Thank you.
So I come off mute, Carlos. Yeah, got some gems to drop.
You, I don't know if you call them gems, but uh, there's a task for what I do. What resonates most with people is when they see me on video. When I
Mm,
give tips on video, when I talk on video, and I absolutely hate recording video. So when I have to do it, it just drains me completely, right? But I see the value. That's really a 9 or 10 value both ways for the business and for others, as I can see and measure. So, but it has to be me, right? It's my
yeah,
face,
can't
it's
delegate
my
you.
brand, right? They're looking at me. So I try delegating by having an expert videographer or that they can actually do. They do a lot of my videos. They edit all my videos. I record them, they edit them and make them and post them and do all of that. But also try to automate it by using an avatar. So I recorded myself as an avatar. So you could actually, I'm thinking, well, I'll never have to do this again. It'll be an avatar of myself. But when I tried it, it was so bad. I mean, it looked so robotic. I was like, oh, that's not gonna work. Yeah, even my mother called me and says, "Are you okay? You don't sound right." I go, that's not me. But
That's funny.
Uh, uh, with
I
that,
wanted to.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had somebody at the door earlier, so that's why I couldn't uh, talk. But on what you were talking about previously, the your energy drain versus your um, the activities, right? The examples either Amanda gave or Sherry, uh, the environment matters a lot. The, the example you guys have given me a lot is gaping void, right? That's
Hmm.
an extremely toxic environment. Or the example Sherry just gave, where you went into a meeting energized, and somebody there completely drained you because they took it all apart, right? Or didn't agree on anything. So as you try to find the fulfillment ROI, I think is extremely important that you are very aware of the environment you are in. Which the only way that I can see this working for your benefit is that you kind of apply your mindset.
That have
So
what?
your mindset. So you have to do some work on your own mindset, because if you already know, I already work in this environment, right? So either you can do two things: I change the environment, or I adjust to the environment with mindset, so that your fulfillment ROI works and you can
Yeah,
adjust to it.
that's a really great point. That ties back to one of the things Jen said at the beginning of like doing this itself is going to be an energy investment. Like you have to build some awareness of I'm really not fulfilled, and oh my gosh, I realized that Carlos was right. It's my environment. I'm not in an environment where the things that I do that I used to love before provide me fulfillment anymore. Maybe you're in an organization that shifted. Maybe the culture has shifted as you've gotten bigger. Maybe the market has shifted. Maybe your priorities have shifted and the environment has changed. And so what was working before isn't working the same way. And so the fulfillment ROI has shifted because either the value has gone down or the amount of energy it takes to do it has gone up. And so, but thinking about it, where are the environmental factors at play? And are they impacting the energy or are they impacting the value? And then, like Carlos, like you said, the choice is, well, the environment's not great. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go somewhere else and find a new environment. Or the environment's not great. Either I can change some variables in it, like Jen saying, hey, I do my best writing in the morning. So clients, when you're asking for writing, can you let me know if it can be due by 10 a.m. tomorrow? So she can change the timing, that environment. Or it's just, well, I like the job. This person's not the best as a coworker, but it's worth staying here because the job is valuable enough to me. I'm going to just accept that this is one of the relationships I have to engage in, and I'm going to make the best of it that I can in the environment.
That would be mindset.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So that is a quick overview of what's your deal. Thank you for sharing there. This is something you could fill out at any time and frankly in any environment. So like if you're feeling this at home or one of your employees or people that you work with is feeling this, give them the sheet and have it be one of your one-on-one conversations. So how do we apply this, especially for leaders? And there's sort of three areas. I sort of mentioned one with the team, but individually filling this out for your own fulfillment. Like if you're feeling burned out in your work, check in. Where's that showing up for you? And is it environmental? Is there something in the shifting, like have you hit an inflection point, as we call it at IPN, where what got you here isn't going to get you there? Things are just different physics of behind the scenes. With your team, what's high low and their ROI? I think a one-on-one is a really great place to implement a tool like this. A couple of the questions I like to ask in one-on-ones are, what have you done that was exceptional since our last one-on-one? And what are you excited about once you leave this one-on-one? Those are two emotional words just to track. Can the person, one, helping them name what they do that is exceptional, which is helping them get clarity on the value that they really provide. And two, if they're excited about something, the energy profile is probably pretty low moving forward. But if they can't name what they did that was exceptional, they can't name what they're excited about, that to me is an immediate kind of yellow flag that their fulfillment's probably not real high and their ROI return isn't great. So maybe we should have a couple of conversations like, where's that showing up? And that this could be a great tool that's sort of more objective to allow them to share with you where their profile might be a little bit off. And then organizationally, we think fulfillment ROI exists at the organizational level. What we do is we call the reduction of energy is operational excellence. and the increasing of the value proposition is organizational health. And so when you're working to move your organization forward to be more fulfilling as an environment, which is also more sustainable, which means like long-term more profitable, understanding how to engage in organizational health and operational excellence together in tandem helps you to create that strategic implication or implementation of this fulfillment ROI concept to help talk about those two sides and how are they working together. So just kind of as a last discussion prompt, we'll take just a couple minutes here, see if anything jumps out so we can stay on time. Not going to read them, but is there anything in there that stands out to you? It's popcorn, open conversation.
I think that first one, if you know, put some effort into optimizing every decision. I mean, think about how much energy you would have at the end of the day. Like you wouldn't be the person that's, falling into bed and exhausted and thinking about what has to go on the next day. We might still be doing that, but maybe we'll do it because we did something fun instead of doing something that drained all of our energy, right? So I think that would be interesting. That would be an interesting team building activity too, to find out where individuals on the team, where their fulfillment ROI lies, so that people can pick up the slack for their teammates. It'd be interesting to think about.
Yeah, and I like that, pulling out that distinction. Being exhausted at the end of the day is not an immediate equation to being unfulfilled. Like my go-to example is like Doctors Without Borders. I'm sure many of them are going to sleep exhausted at the end of their days and still extremely fulfilled in the work that they do. Because just because it takes a lot of energy doesn't automatically mean it's not fulfilling, because the thing that they're doing has such a high value for them. And so, building a house can be a very energy exhausting physical activity, but seeing that you've built this house that you're living in can be a huge value proposition increase. So just because you're tired doesn't mean that you're unfulfilled if you see the value in what you've actually created.
I think on that first one too, just the appreciation for the work that the team does.
Mm-hmm.
If we optimize the decisions to really fulfill everyone's ROI, I think the greater appreciation for each other, and knowing that we are all in this together. There's days that we will be energy drained, but like you said, the value of it is so much higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that value of fulfillment it's the same formula for actually sustainability. Like if you have a high fulfillment ROI, you can weather a lot of bumps in the road that might take a little bit of extra energy or call into question, like, is the value the same as it was before? Because you're not pouring from an empty cup. You've had some in the reserves that you can draw on over time. And always moving to being a human-centered organization where people are feeling seen and heard and they're getting fulfillment. Yeah, that's always going to move an organization forward. These are good conversations to prompt. I love turning the first one into an activity with your team. These are great to kind of sit with. So next steps. I think using the what's your deal and really calculate your current ROI honestly. Like, are you feeling fulfilled? Where are you at? And this is not just I built an Excel version of this where I did this every day for a month to track what's my monthly fulfillment ROI for the organization that I was in. And it was a really helpful tool for me to recognize a couple of things. One, the overall level was not high. And two, when was it high? I was able to pull out and tease out what were the specific activities that I actually did find fulfilling in the midst of a fairly unfulfilling experience. So being honest with that and checking in on a regular basis and tracking it can bring some real great insights. Identify a quick catalyzing win. How could you reduce the energy in the things you're doing? Some automation, maybe some delegating of a task, maybe clarifying, like, this is when I do my best work with people so that you can reduce the energy profile. And then clarify one vectoring opportunity. Where can you get clear on the value? And sometimes that might just be asking, like, I don't know exactly why we're doing this. Can you help me see the value proposition? Or the other way around, making sure you're telling someone on your team, I just want you to know what you're doing right here. I see that it's heavy. and it's taking a lot of energy. This is the value it produces for us. Thank you. So make it matter more for that person by being clear and communicating with them. So those are our invitations for next steps using What's Your Deal. And thank you for taking the time and joining us. If you want to have a conversation with myself or Amanda, we call her AG because we love Amandas in IPN. So we have a lot of them.
Amanda.
The world loves Amanda's.
That's true. I can't
I
argue
have a
with that.
question, Matt.
Yeah.
Have you come up with some sort of a scoring that would be very helpful as to making a change? So the example you just gave, that you measure yourself 30 days, you had to some sort of pointing system that would say, if I do X amount of activities and my drain score is below X,
Yeah.
what should I be doing? What should my next steps be? What should I be reviewing? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Have you come up with something like that?
I'll tell you my rules of like heuristics, like how I was stepping into it when I looked at it. If it's less than 1.0, that means you're engaged in an activity that's draining your cup. If you're less than 0.8, it's something that's draining your cup pretty quickly. So I was at like a 0.67. So it was a pretty significant sign that this is an unfulfilling, and not just unfulfilling, it's a draining environment. And then what I looked at, like, what do I need to do differently? I looked mostly to start with, where am I putting the energy profile? And I was in 5-4, 5-4, 5-4. It was taking a lot of energy to show up. And that's where I was like, okay, this is the real issue. Like, something in the way I'm showing up. And it boiled down to, it was a psychologically unsafe environment. Like, I just never felt safe to act. So everything I did had an extra what if type situation. And so I had to like shift out of that situation. So that's what I would look at. And then one of the other pieces, this is Marcus Buckingham. He did some research and found that if you're engaged in activities that fill your cup 20% of the time during your day or your week, you can weather the other 80%. And so you don't need to be maximizing your fulfillment ROI everywhere, but find something every day that is a maximizing activity for you for just an hour or two of your day. And if you can't do that, that would be another flag for me that you're in an environment that is over time going to drain your cup and leave you burned out. So we are at time. So I just want to thank you all. Great conversation. Awesome for helping us this inaugural. This is the first one, first of many.
It was awesome. It was
Join
good.
us next month.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
Thank you. Y'all have a happy weekend.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.